Charles E. Peck's creepy calls from the grave. Phones have become an essential tool in life that it's almost impossible for someone to live in this age without owning one. Essentially, we use it to communicate with other people, a loved one, a friend, or even that annoying telemarketer. But is it possible to use these devices to communicate with someone who's dead? The unsettling case of Charles E. Peck's mysterious calls from the grave might convince you that perhaps even those who have passed are sometimes only a phone call away. A bitter fate. In the afternoon of September 12, 2008, in San Fernando Valley, California, a commuter train laden with 225 passengers collided head-on with a freight train. The accident, which came to be known as the Chatsworth crash, killed 25 people on the spot and injured 135 more. One of the unfortunate ones was the 49-year-old Charles E. Peck, a citizen of Salt Lake City. He was in Los Angeles for a job interview at Van Nuys Airport. He had previously worked at Delta Airlines at Salt Lake City International Airport as a customer service agent. The new employment opportunity would have allowed Peck to start a new home with his fiancée, Andrea Katz. Meanwhile, he had 3 grown children from a previous union. Miss Katz heard about the Metrolink commercial train accident over the radio while she was driving to the train station to pick up Peck. The mysterious phone calls. Peck's tragic life story didn't end in the crash. For almost 11 hours after the collision and up until the point when rescuers were able to recover his body, Peck's cell phone had dialed the numbers of his immediate family members: his mother, his brother, his sister, his son, and his fiancée. Initially, rescue operators were excited to learn about Peck's phone calls, which suggested that he was still alive. Even Peck's wife-to-be was quite relieved when she first received the call. Other people who got his call were in the same optimistic position, believing that everything's well with Peck. There were 35 calls made between the 11-hour period after the accident. Peck's final call went through around 3 in the following morning, about an hour before his dead body was recovered. Static noises. While Peck's folks were kind of relieved to see his name pop up on their phone screens, somehow they're still kind of wary on the way the calls were made. Interestingly, they weren't really able to talk to Peck and ask him about what's going on with him, if he's okay, if he'd be able to make it to dinner, so to speak. In all of his calls, they only heard one thing: static noise. Even more bizarre was that when they tried to call him back, their calls went straight to his voicemail. As hours waned by, Peck's loved ones became desperate that they resorted to leaving him voice messages of encouragement and assurance that he would be rescued. A horrifying recovery. In the midst of all the rubble and debris made from the crash, Peck's lifeless body was found. It was already an hour after his last phone call was placed. The rescuers who recovered Peck's remains confirmed that the man had died almost immediately on impact, rendering it impossible for him to make those calls. Even the coroner who looked into the body said that there were no signs indicating that Peck had survived the crash, even for a small amount of time. Moreover, authorities who secured the crash site said that they couldn't find Peck's phone among the ruins, suggesting that his device wasn't on his person when he was found. On the other hand, there were reports indicating the likelihood that his phone was actually recovered, but it was already too wrecked for them to make mention of it. Regardless, a phone that was severely damaged would likely be inoperable, let alone make calls of its own. It was at this moment when Andrea Katz and those people close to Peck came into a realization that there's something unusual going on. Convinced that he's already been dead long before he made those calls, Peck's loved ones believed that it was a way for him to reach out to them, whom he'd cared for the most. Another important thing was that the calls also helped rescuers locate his remains. Trying to put some logic. Most of us are probably no strangers to butt dials, one of the common ways to make those unintentional calls. This is supposedly the explanation raised by skeptics regarding the cases of calls made beyond the grave. According to them, it's likely that Peck's phone got pressed by his body or an object, thus the random dialing. However, one couldn't totally disagree that the fact that Peck's random calls were made only to those people close to him and no one else. Could it really just be a case of malfunctioning phone? Or is it actually Peck who was trying to reach out from the afterlife? No one knows for sure. but do tell us in the comments what you think of Charles E. Peck's creepy calls from the grave. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.